Hello everybody, it's the Alco Diesel Guy with a project for you. Many of you have seen similar to this boxcar but in better shape. My Toys R Us boxcars running around my layout. Something I built a while back when Toys R Us went out of business, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. Now, of course, I hear they're making a comeback and they will once again be in, apparently, Macy's stores this Christmas as sort of a temporary setup. Very unusual. At any rate, I decided I would show, I've been actually trying to do this several times. I'm going to show you how to make one of those cars, as you're probably wondering how I managed to get those box cars to run around that layout, considering how the Whitestone line has all those treacherous turns and everything else. It is anything but easy. And I'm assuming a lot of you out there are wondering how I got them to run so well. And what I intend to do in this video is demonstrate just what I did to make those cars work as well as they did. That's by basically upgrading them. So the first step here is going to be to deal with the car itself. As you can see, it's not in perfect shape, but that's fine, because to be honest, we're not going to use this part at all. The bottom is going to come off this unit. But before I go any further, I am going to go ahead and clean this, as I see there is all kinds of dirt all over it. I'm afraid to ask what this brown stuff is. I'm hoping it's chocolate. Oh boy. Let me go get a wipe and I will be right back. So here I have one of my usual soft touch wipes. Again, I'm using a type Clorox / disinfecting wipe, and as you can see, it works really well. It's taking the stuff right off. The reason why I recommend these instead of alcohol is that while alcohol tends to clean things up, it does too good a job, and it will actually take the paint, in my experience, along with it. And that's something you probably don't want if you're trying to restore something, especially. So, as you can see, this is all coming right off. That looks really great. Now, these are probably the model railroader / computer geek / vintage computer geek / pretty much everything secret weapon. Look at that. Magic. Like magic, it looks brand new. The dirt, ironically enough, actually helps these because it, in my opinion, covers up and protects the paint. So when you take it off, the paint is actually really clean underneath there. Look at that. It's really polishing up nicely. I didn't pay much for this online. I bought this, well, I want to say at least a couple 2 years ago. I think just before or just during the pandemic, I was going to do it as a project. So now I'm just going to keep polishing up here, get every last bit of this dirt off, and that really looks great. So for the sake of one of these disinfecting wipes, I have just made this thing look pretty much brand new. So I'm going to keep going over it and all the dirt. I prefer to work with clean items. I could go over this later on, but I prefer it to be clean, especially since I'm going to be using some adhesives here to do the job. Adhesives generally don't like dirt very much. Again, what's nice about this kind of method of cleaning these things, in addition to it being more natural, it will not take the paint off in my experience. It might. Maybe someone else's mileage has varied. Please leave a comment if you have had that problem. I have yet to discover a problem with these wipes. They, in my opinion, do the job perfectly. Sort of a get out of jail free card for one of these filthy old models and to really turn them into something nice. Okay, so we got all that cleaned off. The next step is going to be to get this boxcar off its chassis. The reason being is, as we know, or if you're not familiar with the lifelike cars, these did not have the greatest underpinnings or chassis. And this is basically all it has. You can see how easy that came out. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just a simple weight, and as you see, it started to corrode there, as is typical because the metal is cheap. And the trucks it utilizes are these these plastic ones with these plastic wheels made with very cheap plastic. And yeah, this is not going to stay on the tracks. It's just going to find every chance to come off, and it's just going to cause misery for the end user, which would be you. That is to say, the person watching this video and learning how I modified these. So this is done, at least for that model. Here's what I'm going to replace it with. So you're going to be shocked. This is an new old stock Bachmann Silver Series stock car. The reason why I chose this, in addition to the fact that these stock cars don't tend to be very popular on the railroads, I think it's because horses, I don't know, for some reason don't, I mean, some people do have them on their tracks, but apparently this type of horse car isn't as popular. I'm assuming it's the fact that this is not in a very humane way of hauling animals, and it was outlawed for so long. It might have something to do with that, not sure. Whatever the case, it's just not popular. That said, though, it's perfect for the job I'm going to do. I need this thing for because it is, I'm going to use this actually as my sort of stand for it, everything I need. It has a heavy-weighted chassis, it has metal wheels, it has knuckle couplers, and it's everything that the underpinnings of this thing didn't have, and it currently doesn't have. So the first step is going to be to actually take this car out of its shell. I'm going to separate the chassis from the top. I'll show you the modifications from there. I'm going to use my sponger here. There it goes. Very easy. These spongers are, mind you, a great thing. It costs like a couple cents a piece. Trust me, they will save you quite a lot of agony and damage. So this can also be disposed of or put in storage. But I now have parts if I ever need to fix something again. Okay, so here is this little underpinning. We can now actually put it upside down because there's nothing to worry about here. It's just a metal plate. It's not going to get damaged in any way visual. I'm going to now carefully remove the wheels on this, and I'm going to just do a gentle lube. The reason being is, normally I wouldn't bother with this, but the reason being is I happen to know this is new old stock. It has sat around for quite some time, probably about 10 years, and then before I bought it, and now it's been sitting in my possession for a couple of years as well. And yet, I'm not sure if Bachmann bothers to put lubrication on these wheels, but I always do, because I know for a fact that needlepoint bearings will eat up the plastic and eventually go right through the truck frames, which is not a good thing. I'd much rather have to clean up old lubricant than I would having to find replacements for these, which go in a stock a lot, even with Bachmann's direct websites and stuff. You can never seem to find these in stock very easily. So it's a good idea, in my opinion, to protect these, because if they ever stop making them, you're kind of, well, up a creek without a paddle. Let me go ahead now and get some lubrication. I gotta remember to get some more of this. This is a LaBelle 107. You can tell this jar has been around a while. And all I'm going to do with all these truck sections here is I'm going to go in here and just put a little dab of oil in each one of these wheels themselves. Another reason why I chose the Silver Series is, again, I find these Bachmann Silver Series cars, I should say, is I find these run very reliably, even on my treacherous layout with its mountains and curves. I've never had one of these derail on me, with very few exceptions. They just hold the rails beautifully. And that's coming from a guy who's really not much of a Bachmann worshiper, to put it mildly. Although lately, their locomotives, like their RS3, that's the one with the TCS system, that's actually pretty cool. I really like running that. I was not expecting to like that engine as much as I do. I love doing switching with it on my layout. Okay, so we've now lubricated all the wheels, so all I'm going to do now is gently, as you saw me before, pull these and separate them, the truck frames, and just slip the wheels back in place. This is going to be a little bit more of a troublemaker. Judging by the wheels, this is definitely new old stock. It has never actually run. And I just put a drop of oil in each of these. Ooh, getting it all over my fingers, so that's not good. I have to go wash my hands now because I don't want to have this exposed. Tip: when you work with oil and you wind up touching the models again, always wash your hands before you continue, or you will permanently stain your items. Okay, with my hands now nice and clean, it's time to continue with this project. And you might think I'm just going to slip this over. Well, not exactly. There are a few little modifications we have to do. Namely, these little points here which stick out and mount into the actual shell that was on there, this stock car shell. Reason being is obviously they don't line up with what's on this shell itself, so I'm going to remove them. Or do they? Because this is a little bit differently designed than what I remember from the others I had. If they do, I'd be tempted to keep them in place. No, they're not going to quite line up. As you can see, that's where they are. Again, it's been a couple years since I did this because I've had so many mishaps with it. So what I'm going to do now is I have a tiny little utility knife. I'm just going to use this to carefully cut this away. Okay, so I've now trimmed most of this away. I'm just going to do a test fit to see if this fits it. As you can see, it does go on pretty perfectly. It sort of holds by itself, but not really. So to make this a little bit more permanent, I'm going to use some glue to hold this in place. I got this super glue here. This is Gorilla Glue. You can use pretty much anything. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to apply it to the outside of this a little bit here on the higher points. Now, some might say, isn't that going to make it so you can't open this anymore? And that's right, because to be honest, you wouldn't want to. I don't see why you'd ever want to put the stock chassis back in there. But again, if you've gone this far, you most likely aren't trying to keep it stock, so I don't, again, see why anyone would want to do that. But a note again, if you for some reason thought this was reversible, just so you know, you can't. I'm just going to go in here one more time and pop this. This has a needle in the top, these things. So just need to get enough of it out so it'll actually work. I have to employ my knife to fix this. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. Just going to gently go around the edge here with the glue. Try to avoid getting it on the outside. Needle out just a little bit. My hand is steady up, isn't steady anymore. Oh boy. Okay, that is all done. So now, let's string all over this place. I hate when the glue strings like this. Let me wipe my hands off quickly. Don't want to get that on me. Now we're ready to put this whole thing together. And now we're just going to place it over. Line the frame up carefully. And hopefully not burn my fingers. I may have overdone it on the glue a little bit, to be honest, but I think I got it. And there we have it. And that is essentially a completed car from there on in. What I'm going to do now is actually store this upside down so I know it'll sit in place correctly. Actually, yeah, let me leave it like that. I'm just going to let this sit someplace now and let the glue dry in place. And once it's done, I'll be ready to test it and give it a run up and down the white stone line and see if she can make it around the curves and through the sidings, which is what the main concern is. This is already setting up. Make sure I have this level. The only catch here is going to be getting the chassis perfectly level because you have no way of, because you don't have those points to mount it to, unlike the stock design. You have to sort of know exactly where they are, and it's hard to tell. So I think I got it stored sitting straight up. I'm going to store it like that, and this should set up and be good to run in a few minutes. And that's essentially the end of the project. All I'm going to do now is let this sit for a while and maybe post, and once it's dried up, I'll give it a test run, and I'll probably post some footage of it. So I hope everyone enjoyed this quick little project. Please like and subscribe, and as always, keep the middle side down, and please comment if you have any comments on this video or have any questions. Take care and have a great evening. Back onto the main line here. I have to wait until heat clears ahead of me, and then I'll go into it. And that is that boxcar I rebuilt, which now has a Bachmann stock car underneath it, which I've modified to fit it. Very simple mod to do. I appreciate having such unusual rolling stock on my layout like this. Let me slow it up right here and throw switch number 1. Actually, number 2. Let's get him on past the switch quickly here. Put him on the 3rd track. And throw 2 back again. And there he is on the 3rd track. Now again, I have to get that coach up there, so I'm going to go and run him a little bit quicker. Kind of cool, I have 2 trains coming in and out. Let's now back him off and stop him right about there. Ish.